Citizens of thought, seekers of reason, today we are gathered not merely to ponder poetry, but to unveil philosophy. Beneath the beauty of metaphor lies the structure of meaning. Lips like promises, eyes like forever. These are words that stir the heart. But the Stoic does not stop at stirring. The Stoic seeks to see clearly. In Stoic philosophy, there is a profound focus on the alignment between our words and our actions. The lips that make promises, declare intentions, or speak with fervor must be in harmony with the deeds that follow. For Stoics, this alignment is not just a matter of ethics. It is a fundamental reflection of our inner character and our commitment to living by reason. Words are powerful. They can build bridges between souls, inspire movements, and bring about great changes. But words alone, detached from actions, carry little weight in the Stoic view. A promise made must be a promise kept. To speak without intention to fulfill those words is to deceive oneself and others. In Stoic thought, virtue is not about mere expression, but about doing. What we say must be a direct reflection of what we are willing to do. This is what the Stoic calls integrity, the unwavering consistency between what we speak and what we enact. It's about being true to one's word, for without this consistency we fall into the trap of hypocrisy, or worse, self-deception. Consider this: when we speak a promise, are we truly aware of the consequences of our words? Are we committed to the path that those words imply? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, offers a reflection on human nature and the tendency to speak recklessly. He emphasizes that one must always ask themselves whether they are truly prepared to meet the commitments they make. If we make promises casually, without considering the responsibility they bring, we expose ourselves to the possibility of failure and, worse, dishonesty. The Stoic does not promise lightly. Before speaking, a Stoic ensures that the commitment made can be followed through with virtue and discipline. This focus on aligning words with action helps cultivate trust. Trust is not built through grandiose speeches or empty declarations, but through consistent, small actions that align with our spoken intentions. The Stoic teaches us that integrity is rooted in the internal discipline of self-control and mindfulness. When we say something, it is an expression of our internal state. If that statement is not in harmony with our capabilities or our deeper values, we set ourselves up for dissonance. In a world where words often fly with little thought or consequence, the Stoic philosophy calls us to rise above. It asks us to reflect deeply on the power of our speech, and to recognize that our true power lies not in what we say, but in what we do. The words of a Stoic are thus like arrows, carefully aimed, measured, and purposeful, not shots in the dark. In this context, reason becomes the guiding principle. Words spoken in the heat of emotion or the rush of the moment might bring fleeting satisfaction, but they lack the steadiness and intentionality of actions shaped by reason. The Stoic way is to pause, to consider the impact of our words, and to ensure that when we speak, we are prepared to act. This is not to say that we should never speak of our intentions, but that we must carefully consider them before we speak. When the lips make a promise, the Stoic calls for a commitment that transcends mere intention. It is an embodied promise, a promise that will be lived through actions, not just words. This requires mindfulness, a key Stoic practice, where we take full responsibility for our actions and their consequences. Through this, we honor the connection between speech and action, and most importantly, we uphold the virtue of integrity. In the end, the Stoic teaches us that true greatness is not found in how eloquently we speak, but in how faithfully we act in accordance with what we say. For it is through actions, not words, that we demonstrate our character and it is through alignment between the two that we achieve a life of virtue, consistency, and honor. Words may flow from the lips, but it is actions that define the quality of a person's character. In the Stoic worldview, we are often reminded of the impermanence of external beauty. Beauty, whether found in physical appearance, wealth, or fleeting moments of pleasure, is transient. It is something that we can experience, but it will inevitably fade. The human body ages, fortunes are lost, and even the most captivating moments slip away with time. Yet, while beauty is fleeting, the Stoics teach us that true greatness and meaning lie not in the external, but in the internal, in the character we cultivate and the virtue we uphold. The Stoic, therefore, is not concerned with chasing after that which is ephemeral and outside of our control. Instead, he directs his attention to that which is lasting and within his power, his character. Character is not something that can be taken from us, nor is it dependent on external circumstances. It is forged in the crucible of thought, action, and reflection. It is built on the steady pursuit of virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, which endure despite the shifting tides of life. When the Stoic speaks of beauty, he does not reject it, but he recognizes it for what it is, a temporary gift. Beauty is not a source of lasting fulfillment because it is bound to fade. Just as the body ages and decays, so too do the outward forms of beauty, whether it's a magnificent landscape, an impressive building, or even the appearance of a person. These things may bring joy in the moment, but they do not provide us with lasting peace. Consider how often society places an inordinate emphasis on beauty, especially physical beauty. We are taught to admire it, to desire it, and to chase after it as though it is the source of happiness. But the Stoic sees through this illusion. He understands that beauty is fleeting and unreliable. It is a temporary pleasure that, when sought after excessively, can lead us into the traps of vanity, insecurity, and distraction. For the Stoic, the pursuit of external beauty is a diversion, a distraction from the work of building the inner virtues that bring true fulfillment. Character, on the other hand, is what truly defines us in the long run. While beauty may fade with time, character only grows stronger with effort and reflection. The Stoic focuses on building a character that is resilient, compassionate, wise, and virtuous, understanding that these qualities are the bedrock upon which a good life is built. Virtue does not fade or decay. It can be developed and strengthened with every decision we make. In this way, the Stoic sees character as the source of true fulfillment. It is what sustains us through difficult times and gives us a sense of purpose and direction. It is essential to understand that a person's true value is not in the fleeting appearances they present to the world, but in the integrity, wisdom, and strength they carry within. A life well lived is not one spent obsessing over outward appearances, but one where we focus on our internal development. A Stoic asks himself, am I acting with virtue? Am I pursuing wisdom and practicing justice? Am I tempering my desires and strengthening my mind? These questions guide the Stoic on the path to lasting peace and fulfillment. The recognition that beauty is fleeting encourages a shift in priorities. Instead of wasting energy chasing after things that will eventually vanish, the Stoic seeks to cultivate a mind that remains steady and calm amidst life's changes. His goal is not to hold onto beauty or preserve moments of pleasure, but to maintain inner peace and integrity regardless of the external circumstances. This is the foundation of the Stoic's tranquility, not in the fleeting, but in the eternal truths of character and virtue. The Stoic's pursuit is not of what fades, but of what endures, the virtues that define our character. In the end, it is not the fleeting beauty of a sunset, the quick allure of a smile, or the temporary satisfaction of pleasure that will bring us peace. It is the steady, deliberate cultivation of wisdom, courage, and justice that will lead us to a life of fulfillment, regardless of the external circumstances. When we understand this, we shift our attention from that which is temporary and out of our control to that which is permanent and within our grasp, the development of our inner character. The Stoic philosopher teaches us to be cautious of the appearances of things, for they often conceal the deeper truths. In life, we encounter countless illusions, things that appear one way but are in fact something else. Whether it is a fleeting moment of pleasure that seems fulfilling, or a person who looks virtuous but behaves otherwise, the Stoic warns us not to be deceived by the surface level of things. The true value of a situation, a person, or an object is not found in its appearance, but in its essence, which is often obscured from the untrained eye. At the heart of this Stoic teaching lies the principle of discernment, the ability to distinguish between what is fleeting and what is permanent, between what is genuine and what is superficial. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with images, advertisements, and people, all promising happiness or fulfillment through external appearances. Yet, Stoicism urges us to look deeper and question the assumptions we hold about the world around us. For appearances can be deceiving, and it is easy to mistake what is momentary for what is lasting. Consider, for example, the experience of wealth or material possessions. In a society that prizes luxury and status, it is easy to become seduced by the idea that wealth brings happiness or a sense of fulfillment. However, the Stoic philosopher recognizes that material wealth is only an external condition and cannot provide true contentment. The wealthiest person may still be filled with anxiety, fear, and dissatisfaction, while someone with little material possession may live a life of inner peace and contentment. In this way, appearances of happiness, through wealth, status, or power, often mask the deeper struggles people face internally. Similarly, in our relationships with others, we are often drawn to individuals based on their outward charm or beauty, only to find that their character does not match their appearance. The Stoic teaches us that it is not the surface qualities that should attract us, but the virtue that lies within. A person may present themselves in a way that appears honest, compassionate, or wise, but if their actions do not align with those qualities, then they are simply an illusion. The wise person does not judge based on what is seen in the moment, but instead seeks to understand the deeper nature of a person's character and intentions. The same caution is urged when it comes to our own internal experiences. We often judge our emotional states or desires based on immediate feelings, pleasure, anger, excitement, believing that these feelings represent the truth of who we are or what we need. Yet, the Stoic would remind us that our emotions are often fleeting and unreliable. They are not reflective of our true nature, but are temporary responses to external events. By learning to detach ourselves from these emotions and examine them rationally, we can avoid the deception of letting our feelings dictate our actions or our sense of self-worth. The Stoic philosophy teaches that we must develop the habit of seeing beyond the surface, of looking at the world through a lens of reason rather than being swayed by the allure of appearances. It is through this practice that we gain freedom from the chaos of external events and learn to cultivate inner tranquility. By not being deceived by the outward appearance of things, we are able to preserve our peace of mind and make decisions that align with our true values rather than the superficial desires of the moment. In this way, the Stoic does not live in denial of the world's external beauty or the allure of appearances. Instead, they approach the world with a sense of clarity, always questioning and reflecting on what lies beneath the surface. This clarity, born of rational thinking and wisdom, protects us from being swept away by illusions and helps us remain grounded in the pursuit of what is truly important. The Stoic asks, what is the true value of this thing or this person? Does it reflect virtue, or is it simply a fleeting appearance meant to deceive the senses? By training ourselves to look beyond appearances, we develop the ability to focus on what is truly important, our own character, our inner peace, and our ability to live in accordance with reason. We stop being seduced by the superficial and learn to place our energy where it truly matters, in the development of virtue, wisdom, and self-mastery. This is the essence of Stoic practice, seeing the world as it truly is and making choices based on that clarity, rather than being deceived by the fleeting and often misleading appearances that surround us. One of the central tenets of Stoic philosophy is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This distinction is not just an abstract concept, it is a practical guide for living a life of peace and resilience. The Stoic teaches us to focus on what we can control: our own actions, our thoughts, and our responses, and to accept with grace that which lies outside of our control. This principle applies deeply to our words and perceptions. While we can control what we say, we must learn to accept the reality of what we see, regardless of whether it aligns with our expectations or desires. The power of words is immense, and as human beings, we often underestimate the impact they can have. Words can heal or hurt, inspire or dishearten, create connection or divide. The Stoic understands that we have full control over the words we speak. When we choose to speak, we are expressing our thoughts and intentions, and we must do so with care, knowing that our words reflect our character. The Stoic philosopher does not speak recklessly or impulsively. Instead, he speaks with purpose, grounded in reason and virtue. In this way, we can ensure that our words serve the higher ideals of wisdom, justice, and integrity. When we speak, we must be mindful of the responsibility our words carry. Our words shape the world around us, whether in small, everyday conversations or in moments of greater significance. But while we have control over what we say, we cannot control how others receive or interpret our words. People may misinterpret our intentions, respond with anger or indifference, or even twist our words to suit their own desires. However, the Stoic does not allow the reactions of others to disturb his inner peace. He understands that once his words have left his mouth, they are no longer in his control. His task is simply to speak with honesty and clarity, knowing that he cannot dictate how others will respond. The Stoic accepts this uncertainty with equanimity, focusing on the integrity of his own actions rather than seeking to control the outcome. On the other hand, while we have control over our words, we do not have control over what we see in the world. The events of life unfold before us, often without regard to our preferences or desires. We cannot control the circumstances we face, nor can we change the nature of the things we perceive. People may act in ways that are frustrating, unjust, or cruel. The world may present us with challenges or hardships that seem insurmountable, yet in the Stoic view, how we respond to these external events is what truly matters. We may not control what we see, but we can control how we interpret and react to it. The Stoic accepts the reality of what he sees, however unpleasant it may be. This does not mean that he resigns himself to passivity or apathy. Rather, It means that he faces the world with clear eyes, acknowledging both its beauty and its imperfections. He understands that life is full of unpredictability, and the ability to accept what is beyond his control is essential for cultivating tranquility. The Stoic does not waste energy railing against what cannot be changed. Instead, he focuses on responding in a way that aligns with his values. If he sees injustice, he may take action to right it, but he does so from a place of inner calm, guided by reason rather than reactive emotion. In practical terms, this means that the Stoic focuses his energy on the aspects of life he can influence: his own actions, his thoughts, his responses. He works to be mindful of his words, ensuring that they reflect his values and are spoken with the intention of promoting clarity, understanding, and kindness. At the same time, he accepts that the world will unfold as it will, and he learns to respond to what he sees without being thrown off balance. This acceptance is not passive resignation, but an active choice to focus on what he can control and let go of what he cannot. The ability to control our speech and accept the reality of our perceptions is a fundamental practice in Stoicism. It frees us from the emotional turmoil that often arises from trying to control others or resist the inevitable. When we practice this, we cultivate a sense of inner peace, knowing that we are acting in accordance with our values and responding to the world with wisdom and grace. The Stoic, therefore, speaks thoughtfully, controls his impulses, and embraces reality with open eyes, confident in his ability to navigate whatever comes his way. The Stoic philosophy teaches that we must look beyond the fleeting nature of the present moment to find what is truly eternal. The things we experience in our lives, our pleasures, pains, successes, and failures, are all temporary. They come and go, often beyond our control. But the Stoic understands that there is something within us that is not subject to the whims of time and circumstance, our mindset. This internal way of thinking, grounded in virtue and reason, is the only true source of stability and peace in a world that is ever changing. The Stoic teaches us that what is truly eternal is not to be found in the moment itself, but in our capacity to respond to it with wisdom, virtue, and mindfulness. We live in a world where so much of our attention is focused on the immediate, on what is happening now, in this very moment. The modern world exacerbates this tendency with constant distractions, social media, and an overwhelming flow of information that pulls us from one event to the next. The present moment can often feel like the most important thing, as if it is the only reality that matters. Yet, for the Stoic, the present is not the ultimate goal. While we must fully engage in the present, we are called to look at it through the lens of our mindset, the lens of reason. The Stoic believes that it is not the fleeting pleasures or pains of the moment that define our lives, but how we approach them. If we allow ourselves to be swept away by the emotions or external circumstances of the moment, we lose sight of our deeper values and principles. For instance, when we experience a moment of joy, we might be tempted to chase it, trying to extend it or cling to it, thinking it will bring us lasting happiness. Similarly, in moments of pain or discomfort, we might become consumed by the desire to escape it, seeing it as something we need to rid ourselves of at all costs. However, the Stoic teaches us to recognize that these feelings are temporary. No moment of happiness will last forever, nor will suffering. What is permanent is the way we choose to respond to these moments. The key is understanding that the eternal lies not in the sensations of the moment, but in our ability to cultivate a mindset that is rooted in wisdom, virtue, and self-discipline. The Stoic's goal is to develop a mindset that is steady, unshaken by the fluctuations of external events. This mindset is built on understanding that everything in life is transient, whether it be a joy, a hardship, or a triumph. Once we accept this, we can free ourselves from the tyranny of trying to hold on to each fleeting moment and instead focus on developing a mindset that allows us to respond with dignity and virtue, regardless of what the moment brings. This mindset is not one of passive resignation, but one of active engagement with life. A Stoic does not turn away from the present moment or try to escape it. Rather, he faces it with a mindset that allows him to accept what he cannot control, to act with virtue when he can, and to reflect on how he can grow from the experience. For the Stoic, it is not the external circumstances that matter most, but how he faces them, how he chooses to respond, and how he aligns his actions with his values. In this sense, the Stoic teaches us that true freedom comes from cultivating an internal state of mind that is not dependent on external circumstances. While we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we respond to it. And it is in our responses, our mindset, that we find the eternal, for these responses are shaped by the lasting principles of wisdom, courage, and temperance, which do not fade over time. No matter what external events unfold, the Stoic remains grounded in the understanding that his mindset is the only thing that can truly define him. Thus, the Stoic view of eternity is not bound to the passing moments or the fleeting experiences of life. Instead, it is found in the cultivation of a character that remains steady through change and growth. The Stoic lives with the awareness that each moment is an opportunity to strengthen his mindset, to deepen his virtue, and to practice living in accordance with reason. This, the Stoic believes, is the true eternal, the timeless values of wisdom, justice, and inner peace that we carry with us, regardless of what the world presents. In Stoic philosophy, the concept of virtue holds paramount importance. It is through virtue, and virtue alone, that we achieve a life of purpose, peace, and fulfillment. While promises can be powerful, they are not enough to define a person's character or to guarantee a life of integrity. A promise is simply an intention, a verbal commitment to do something. However, the Stoic teaches us that the true measure of a person is not in the promises they make, but in the virtue they embody and the actions they take. Virtue in the Stoic sense is a constant, a way of living that reflects wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. It is through this commitment to virtue that we find true alignment with our highest selves, not through the promises we utter. Promises are often spoken in the heat of the moment, driven by external expectations or social pressures. We may promise to do something because it seems like the right thing to say, or because it garners approval, but the Stoic reminds us that a promise alone is a hollow declaration unless it is followed by actions grounded in virtue. A person who constantly makes promises but fails to follow through is simply offering empty words. It is easy to speak of good intentions, to make promises about future actions, but it is the Stoic's commitment to virtue that transforms those intentions into meaningful, consistent actions. Virtue is not something that is declared by words but demonstrated through actions. It is the embodiment of wisdom in how we navigate life, the practice of justice in how we treat others, the courage to face challenges with integrity, and the temperance to control our desires and impulses. The Stoic teaches that we must focus on the process of becoming virtuous, rather than simply making promises that we may or may not keep. Promises can easily become a form of self-deception, a way of convincing others, and perhaps ourselves, that we are acting in accordance with our values when, in fact, we may not be living up to those values at all. The Stoic strives to live by virtue, which means living in a way that reflects his inner character, not based on what he says or promises to do. Each action is an opportunity to practice virtue. For the Stoic, this is not a matter of making promises about the future, but of demonstrating virtue in the present moment. Living by virtue means recognizing that every decision we make, no matter how small, contributes to the development of our character. It is the accumulation of virtuous actions, not promises, that shapes who we are and how we relate to the world around us. This idea aligns with the Stoic concept of self-mastery. The Stoic does not seek external validation or approval from others through grand promises. Instead, he focuses on mastering his own thoughts, actions, and responses to the world. He understands that virtue comes from within, and it is through the practice of virtuous behavior, in both the small and significant moments, that a person's true character is revealed. The Stoic does not rely on promises because they are external and transient. Instead, he relies on his own internal commitment to live according to reason and virtue, which is a far more reliable foundation for a life well lived. In this context, living by virtue also means accepting the limitations of our own promises. There is a natural tension between intention and action, and the Stoic knows that his promises are only meaningful if they align with his ability and willingness to fulfill them through virtuous action. When the Stoic makes a promise, it is not out of a desire for recognition or praise, but out of a sincere commitment to act virtuously. And if he fails to fulfill that promise, he does not blame external circumstances or others. Instead, he reflects on the disconnect between his intentions and his actions and seeks to learn from the experience, always striving to improve. Ultimately, the Stoic approach calls us to prioritize living by virtue over speaking of virtue. We are called to act with integrity, wisdom, courage, and justice in every moment, whether anyone is watching or not. It is through this steadfast commitment to virtue that we create a life of meaning and alignment with our deepest values. Promises may come and go, but virtue is a constant that shapes our character and guides us toward a life of fulfillment and tranquility. The Stoic does not need to declare what he will do in the future. He shows who he is by what he does in the present. In conclusion, the Stoic philosophy invites us to move beyond the fleeting distractions and illusions that often govern our lives. Through a deep understanding of concepts like virtue, wisdom, and acceptance, we learn to recognize that true fulfillment does not come from external appearances, empty promises, or the passing moments of pleasure and pain. Rather, it lies in cultivating a mindset grounded in reason and integrity, in focusing on the things within our control, our actions, our character, and our responses to the world. We are reminded that beauty is temporary, character is eternal, and that our words must reflect our values, not just our promises. The Stoic teaches us to see through appearances, to accept what we cannot change, and to act with virtue in every moment. Through this, we create a life that is both resilient and meaningful, not defined by fleeting events, but by the mindset we choose to develop and the virtue we commit to living by. Ultimately, the Stoic path is one of self-mastery, where we live not according to external validation or promises made to others, but by the timeless principles of wisdom and virtue. It is in embracing this mindset that we truly align ourselves with the eternal, finding peace and purpose amid life's uncertainties. The Stoic philosopher, therefore, encourages us to look within, act with integrity, and live with purpose, knowing that it is not the moments that define us, but the character we cultivate and the virtuous actions we take.